With me is Nikhil Alva. Nikhil Alva has done a lot of iconic work. He may not be able to remember the milestones he has covered in his career. And his latest milestone is his book, If I Have to Be a Soldier. And a novel is his new medium of expression after TV shows and documentaries and social media. So, Nikhil, how does it feel like completing this book? I've read some of the beginnings of the novel, that it was your father's dream that there should be a book. And how was it an emotional fulfillment when you finished writing this book?
Yes, certainly. Since you haven't read the book
fully,
I don't think we can really talk about the book, because it would have been lovely to have had a discussion about the book after you've read it. But since that's not the case, yes, it is a novel. Yes, it's a work of passion. It has taken a long time to write, and I'm quite excited by the kind of feedback and reviews that it's been getting.
I've read substantial portions. There are many riveting portions in the book. As we read so much about law and order nowadays, the movies are filled with them, and I feel that a book is such a fabulous medium, because unlike a movie, a book tries to cover all shades of emotions. It can do justice to all stakeholders.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this book. This is about the Mizoram insurgency, and I read from this book that you have heard first-hand stories about insurgency, because your mom would frequently meet people from Mizoram and who are part of so many of these operations and all stakeholders. So this has a very strong emotional touch. And what made you pick up this topic now? As in,
it's a subject I've been researching for many years. I've traveled extensively in the Northeast. I have met a lot of former insurgents and others from the area, and I was quite intrigued by the stories and tales that they had to tell. So that is at the heart of this book is years of research into the subject before sitting down to actually write a novel.
How did you marry the research with the emotion? Like, of course, it's a novel has to be about human characters. And oftentimes the emotion has to come from yourself, and you base your own emotions in the milieu or in the subject. So how did you go about in your writing process? How would you generally do it? Like, you research and then write a storyline, and then
stories are research is because of the historical elements. You want to be true to the historical elements, but fiction is not written like a non-fiction book. It's a fiction. It's a story. It's a story about characters and their playoff of those characters and their journey. The backdrop might be Mizoram, it might be Mumbai, it might be anything else. That's I think that's irrelevant to how you plot a story, the emotions, the roller coaster of a story. Right? So it is not a work of non-fiction, it is a work of fiction set against a historic backdrop. So the characters and their journey and their emotions are as you would script, any fiction novel, with hook points in the plot, with the playoff, with the face-off amongst characters, their emotional turmoil, what motivates them, what drives them, their dreams, their aspirations, whether they achieve those dreams or not, right? And the conflicts that arise as they go through the journey of life. Right, so that's the.
So drawing from your experience of doing so much fiction and fiction work all your life, I wanted to understand that. So this is the right process. Like, there are so many writers, aspiring writers who will probably be watching this. So for them, I just had this thought that okay, you want to write an emotional story in a certain background. So usually, what you do is you write the story in your own, through your own heartfelt emotions, and then do the research, or how does it work? Like, or you do the research, you spend some time around the subject, and then you make up your story.
It's a mix of both, obviously, especially if you're writing. Well, look, one is the pure work of fiction, right, which you're setting in any backdrop. If you choose to use real historic events as the backdrop, then you have to be clear about what those real historic events were and what actually transpired, right? And that requires an element of research. But other than that, it is characters. It is fictional characters and the play off of those characters against each other, right? So it's a mix of two things. If you choose a style, which is it, I mean, there are writers who write pure fiction. The entire landscape and the environment is fictional, etc. Right? You write fantasy, for example, is purely fictional. Those places don't exist. Okay, so they imagine the landscape and they imagine the the environment. In this case, when a writer chooses historic events, those historic events exist, and you have to be true to those historic events. You can't change the historic. You can't change fact. You can't change things that happened. Right? But you can certainly play with the characters that you have created in any manner you want to play with them.
So, Nikhil, one thing, like today when we see a glut of television shows, channels, books, movies, one thing that now is important is to create something memorable, which doesn't fade with time. And you have done a lot of that kind of work, which just lives on, like from Living on the Edge, and so many other things, Indian Idol. I don't know if there are, I can't recount all of them in one go. So what is the recipe that seems to be behind creating something memorable, whether it's a book? There must be some common elements. Do you think that there is some, there are some few things which are common to any memorable work?
Not necessarily. I don't think anyone's, when they start writing, or they make something, nobody knows what is going to be a hit. If you knew the success, if you knew the formula for a hit, everything would be a hit. Everything would be memorable if you knew the formula. Some things just click. Some things click because the timing is right, because of the environment is right, because everything has come together in a particular manner that resonates with an audience, right? Memorable, anything can be memorable. You can do things, I mean, not everything is, there's a difference between memorable and there's a difference between being, commercially successful, right? There are many films that were memorable but did not do very well commercially, for example. Now, memorable for who? Memorable for the author, memorable for the creator, memorable for the audience.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, memorable
for every
for the
creator,
audience.
Everything that he or she produces is memorable because they put effort and time and hard work into it.
Yeah.
Okay, for the audience, it might not be. They might not. It might not be something that they appreciate, or it might not work for them. So I think they are two separate things. Memorable is very different. Memorable, then memorable for who, and commercially successful is primarily from the perspective of the audience. It has been memorable for the audience, and the audiences have turned up in large numbers either to buy a book or to watch a movie, right? So I think there is formula wise. I don't think there's a formula. Nobody knows what is going to do.
When I was reading the plot of your book and a little bit, I was reminded of Diwar. Okay, there are two gentlemen, two brothers, and they have both some connection with violence. One is a police officer, one is a don, and I felt that I mean. Whether you are, like when I was reading your book, I felt there is a certain, I mean, the morality is different, but the skill sets are the same. So here is a soldier who has a certain skill set, and there is an insurgent who has a certain same skill set, and your morality decides which side you go and all. And are there characters like that you have met in your life that when you are researching this book, that they have been on both sides of the moral divide, that they have been right and they have been wrong with the same skill sets?
Who decides who's right and wrong? Simple. Who decides? I mean, your morality might be different from mine. Something that might be right or wrong, right for you might be wrong for me, and vice versa, right? Similarly, in a battle between people with different ideologies, we're seeing in every conversation today, you believe you are right, you follow a particular ideology, I believe I follow a different ideology. But so there's no right or wrong. It is about perspective and how you frame that perspective and which side, and your motivations.
And which side of which era of history are we in?
I don't even think it's that. It's about each individual's motivations and what is driving them. In my book, the guerrilla commander, who's basically from the MNF Sena, is being driven by an ambition. He was fighting for what he believes is freedom, his motherland. Right? He wants an independent nation. Now, is that right? Is that wrong? No, it isn't wrong. There are millions of people. Indians fought the British for their motherland. As India, we fought the British saying, this is our motherland, get out. When you look at it from that perspective, from the perspective of someone who says, look, I want an independent nation, he's not wrong either. But when you look at it from an Indian, from a perspective of nationalism, that is wrong. How dare you want to leave? Right? So I don't think there's any right or wrong in these characters. It is just perspectives and and motivations that are in conflict with each other.
You have seen, you have read this subject as well as you're in your real life. You have seen administrators of all segments of society, and I mean it must have been. I mean you met all kinds of government folks, and so what I just feel is sometimes is that howsoever we may have a rule book that we should not have insurgency and there should not be anyone who's dispossessed and all of that, but there's a natural tendency, there's always a natural condition for war. If suppose an industrialist wants to acquire land and he has a deal which some people do not like, there is naturally going to be a certain conflict and conditions for insurgency and all of that. And I just feel that there is no particular stakeholder finally to whom anyone can go to and say that, okay, fine, you decide what's right for us. I mean, is there a way, are there any, when you research this book on insurgency, did you feel that there are some things to learn, like if there's an administrator today who wants to ensure that there is no insurgency, is there something that you have for him?
No, I don't. I think it's about, as in any situation, it is about listening to what people want, understanding their emotions, understanding why they feel a particular way, and trying your best to ensure that their point of view and perspective, that there is someone that's listening to them. I think insurgencies and violence happens when people don't listen. When people are, they don't care or they don't listen, and people, they keep shouting and they shout and they shout, and then finally when they find the shouting is not working, they escalate it to the next level. Right? And then when you escalate it, then you get noticed, then you have a reaction to that escalation. So it does not need to come to the point where it needs to be.
So you're saying having a dialogue is one of the very important aspects of avoiding or limiting insurgency?
Of course, I think with any friction, dialogue is very important. Listening to another person's point of view is important. Respecting their point of view is important. If you approach every conversation thinking you know everything and you are right and the other person is wrong, then there's not a dialogue. Then you're faking the dialogue. It is not actually a dialogue.
And one thing when I think about having a dialogue and the importance of having a dialogue is also that so many times people understand the issue at hand, but they are very, like let us say when I talk about the movie world, let's say there was a time when there was a war for copyright. The producers wanted copyright and everything should be theirs, and the writers said that okay, we also deserve royalty, this is also our creation. Everybody understands sort of in a way the other person's point of view. So even then they want to make sure that their territory is protected. So is that also the limit of dialogue? Like sometimes you know that okay, these people probably have a legitimate demand, but somebody has decided that okay, this is what I just want and I'll not give it. Is that something that you encounter when you research that? Yes.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. That is the cause of a lot of conflict in the country, is that inflexibility. People already, positions are rigid. So yes,
and
absolutely.
And one also aspect that I liked about the book is that whenever I see a book and whenever there are hardly 3-4 names in the publishing world which are like one name. I mean, when you think about books in India, the 2-3 names that comes to your mind are Shashi Tharoor, Chetan Bhagat, and all. And I see that Shashi Tharoor has liked your novel immensely. And how was it to get an endorsement for your writing from him?
It's fine. I mean, he's a respected writer, and he took the trouble of actually reading the full novel, and he had a point of view, and he was happy to share the point of view. So yeah, one has to, as a fellow writer, appreciate the effort, and people put in effort to actually go through a piece of work and actually read it and review it in detail, right? That takes effort, it takes time, it can't be faked. You have to actually read the damn thing to be able to. So which is what he's done, and which is pretty, I mean, hats off to him with all his other things that he has going on to take out the time to do that.
How are you going about the marketing of the book? Like, I mean,
that is the publisher's job, not mine. It's a question you should ask HarperCollins, because
or rather the readers. Okay, how do we tell you that what you should read?
I don't know. I don't know how to tell you. That is again, that's what publishers are for. Very big publishers with big marketing teams. They're supposed to be able to tell audiences that look, these products exist, and this is what.
We should get a HarperCollins executive.
Yeah, you should actually interview them and
discuss that
and ask how they market books and what the strategy is.
Because it's an impossible job. Because people don't want to read, first of all.
No, that's not true. People read. That's not true at all. If you went to the Calcutta Book Fair, there were, I think, 19 million people, or whatever, that who actually visited. That's a huge number of people over the number of days, right? It was the stadium level filled. If you went to the Delhi Book Fair the other day, the International Book Fair in Delhi last week, it was absolutely packed. People were buying books. Thousands of people over 5-6 days. So it's not correct to say people don't read. A lot of people read. Huge numbers of people read. And increasingly, especially in the regional languages, it's massive. There's massive reading in Hindi, in Bengali, in Kannada, Tamil, other regional languages. Right? And there's certainly a big audience for... In others, you wouldn't have these... I mean, why would companies like HarperCollins would go out of business, I guess, if people are not interested in reading.
But yeah, reading is a timeless... is part of our history.
Yeah.
I mean, we all read.
Also with the new digital platforms, also much easier to access.
Yeah.
They might not read in this form, but they read on something, on tablets, on phones, on.
And I was talking to somebody who's made films and now writes books. He says, I don't want to do my commercial work in my book. I know how to get the numbers.
Yeah.
But I want to write a book because I want to write about these matters. I don't really want to cater to that audience. I know how to do that.
Good. If he's got a publisher who's willing to publish what he wants to write about without worrying about the commercial aspect, good for him. Yes, a good publisher to have. At the end of the day, publishers are also in the business to make money, so your book has to sell.
Yeah. So how do you navigate this process? Like as a writer, when you've seen this publishing world from close quarters, you have a brand name, you have a following of your own, and then you are collaborating with a publisher, and they have their own work experience, they have their own thought process, they have their own background, and their sense of what is right for the readers and all. How did you navigate the process? Was it like, okay, you write the manuscript and you take some suggestions?
No. It's like typically every writer has an agent. I have an agent as well.
Yeah.
The agent's job is to take the manuscript and to have a discussion with different publishers and to come back with offers. So it's pretty much standard in the industry. Every writer has an agent that they work directly. They don't deal directly with the publisher. So the agent basically does the initial marketing of the book to various publishers, brings back the offers, and you sit with the agent and decide
which is the best.
Which of these you want to actually...
Starting in small engagement.
Yeah.
So before signing the book, did you meet the publishers?
Yes, I did. We had offers from 6 or 7 publishers, and we met each of them, and then finally we decided to go with HarperCollins.
And from the time you wrote the manuscript to now, when the book is out in the hands, how long was that?
About 4 years.
Oh my God! Like 4 years ago, this book was completed.
No, it's taken 4 years from start to finish.
From starting the writing process.
Or to publishing, yeah.
But from the manuscript to now, like
about a year.
About a year. So like the time you had your manuscript in hand.
1 year.
And now that it's about a year.
That is a 1 year process.
So like...
and it shouldn't be a 1 year process. It's 1 year because I think publishing companies are very slow. They're slightly more old world. They do things in a particular way. But in the business of television and movies, etc., it would be a much faster process. We're used to literally turning things around.
We shoot today, we edit tomorrow, and release after
the speed of that industry is much faster. Publishing is still a very laid back,
It's, perhaps
slow
the
moving.
medium is also like that, where books are supposed to be consumed slowly. Like we when we want to read a book,
Yeah.
we take the book, but we read it after, let's say, 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to read
That's
it.
right. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Maybe-
The way books are consumed is very different.
Yeah.
Some people start a book, then they take months to finish it. Some people finish it immediately. Some people just buy the book and leave it on the shelf. They
Yeah.
don't do anything with it. And some people go back to a book that they've read, they reread it twice or
Yeah.
thrice. So everyone consumes books very differently. That is true.
And it must
And-
you must be feeling very good also, because see, now that this book is out with all your research, with all your credibility over here, 10 years later, when somebody is doing something on insurgency, they will be coming back to your book to refer that, okay, yes.
I don't think about it like that, honestly. I think that is all ego. Whoever can refer to, there are lots of stuff to refer to. I think that is ego. I think writing a book is basically, firstly, you need something you feel passionately about, an idea you feel passionately about. And there are many different mediums in which you can express yourself. There are movies, there is television, there are books, there is, it could be art, it could be music, right? So each person expresses themselves differently. I chose this medium of a book, and a novel, because I felt that I'd been wanting to write for a long time, and in this form, and I felt the story lended itself to that. That it was deep enough, it had enough layers, and the characters were complex enough to be able to commit to writing a novel, as opposed to doing a
Documentary
or
yeah. So, as a busy executive who has lots of options in life, what did you have to give up to write the book? Like,
writing takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of discipline.
So when you wrote this novel, what did you have to give up? Okay, I can't do
No,
this.
I didn't have to give up anything. I had to give up sleep and time, and basically, each writer has a different process. Mine was, I write best early in the morning, so I would get up 4:30, and write till breakfast 7:38. I do my best writing at that time. And I think that is the only thing, just inconvenience of getting up early when everything is quiet and still, and and committing to that process. And also there are days and weeks sometimes where it's just not, it doesn't seem right. You're writing something, you read it and you know this is mediocre, this is not up to the mark, right? And then you have to restart from scratch and reworking that. Sometimes you go back and you rewrite the first chapter. For example, my first chapter I might have rewritten 80, 90, 100 times. Initially the first chapter was 60, 70 pages long, now it's 8, 10 pages long. So,
Wow.
right? So that happens, that's the process. That's why it takes time. So it's a very personal process. No one telling you what to do. There is nobody else apart from you and your imagination and the research.
Nobody tells you, and as you said, okay, so you say that having a very public life, having a sort of a very social kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, being an in-demand person, you found your writing time before people sort of wake
No,
up.
I was also blessed. The blessing was COVID actually also. 2 years of COVID. Because there was very little social. I did a lot of my writing in those 2 years. Right, I started writing this novel when the first lockdown happened. That's when I had all the research. I was thinking about it for a long time, documentary wise, other things that I wanted to do. But when COVID happened, I actually had the time and space to sit down and start developing the characters properly. And the more I developed, the more excited I got by the potential. And that eventually led to saying, okay, I'm going to commit to writing a book, a novel. With this idea.
From just a couple of questions, maybe for.
Sure.
I think the process is very interesting for other writers.
Yeah.
I think so. From the time you wrote the first draft of the book, that okay, yeah, now my novel is in hand, to you said, okay, now this is enough. Now I can put it out to the literary agent, and now you can talk to the publishers. How long was that?
3 years.
So the first draft was completed very quickly.
First draft took 3 years.
First draft took 3 years.
First draft. Then in the last year, then between the time from the agent to the publisher, every time I reread it, because once it's ready, then you can read see it in its entirety. Then you want to move things, you want to change things.
Yeah.
So I am a bit of a perfectionist that way. Literally till it went to the printer the night before I was making changes. And the publisher said, if you don't give me the final manuscript now, that's it. We're not going to print it, because we also had the Jaipur Lit Fest launch, and there was a slot that had been booked with the printer to actually print the book, so that
so
it
like
could,
like any other company brochure and everything, even till last minute you
as an author, I felt that, look, I can improve this, I can change this. Why don't I,
So like one part I just felt, you approached the literary agent to talk to the publishers. So at that time when you sent out your work to him, was it like proofread? Was it or was it quite rough?
Yeah, no. It's typically proofread. It's the best that you think you have at that point in time. You don't send rough stuff unless you're already a published author and people want to know what you're working on. Then you send some samples, and as you become once you're published, life is much easier, because
second book people will take
is much easier because you can sell the idea on 50 pages, send them 50 pages, and people give advances even on that, or they commit on that basis once they know that you have a track record.
This is what you write.
Your first novel is different, so you have to take the pain to make sure that the first manuscript itself that you start sending out is really good, and you've done the proofreading, you've cleaned it up, it's grammatically correct, right? It's there.
And the cover page as well at that time?
Sorry?
Did you also made the cover page at that time?
No, cover page is not. That's the publisher's job. That is the,
so you write
the artwork and all that. That is the publisher.
So you wrote your book.
You write the manuscript, and then when you're happy with it, only then do you share it. Because also even agents are getting, in a month, any good agent will get 20 manuscripts.
Your agent can't take a call. I mean,
he'll get 20. He'll be getting 15, 20. So he's going to go through those 15, 20. Maybe select one or two that he wants to bag, because he's not going to take junk to the publisher. If he takes junk to the publisher very soon will stop meeting him, right? So he has to find the gems. His job is to find, his or her job is to find the gems and take a small selection to the publisher.
And you're saying that in spite of your track record of such great work, you still had to make sure that your manuscript is given in hand.
It's the first time of anything. It doesn't matter what you did earlier.
Oh wow!
It's irrelevant.
Is that how the world works?
Of course, the world works. So
as you have straddled so many professions.
If tomorrow you say you're an artist. Now I made a painting. Nobody will care that you could sing a song. You're going to be judged on the basis of the painting, not on the basis of I can sing a song. Unless you're some Shah Rukh Khan or you're some really big celebrity, and it doesn't matter. It's selling on the name. That is a different type of selling. But any creative endeavor, if you're switching from one field to the other, you have to be able
to have to provide a proof of concept.
You have to be able to prove that you can do it in that field, because it's a totally different form. Nobody will ask me to prove that I can make a documentary. Right? They know I can make a documentary, for example. But with a novel, it's a brand new form of expression. So they need to be...
So I think that's a very important takeaway for lots of us watchers and all. That no matter how much of a name you have carved for yourself in one business, at least in India, you still have to struggle to prove yourself in the other business, and you start from zero almost.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Nikhil, anything else that you would like to add as we wrap up?
No, I enjoyed the conversation. I hope people get to read the novel, because that is the main intention, is that if you write something, it's not just that it's in your shelf at home, but it's actually read by people. So I hope a lot of people read it, because I think the northeast of India is an area in which very little has been written, people know very little about, and yet it's such a large part of India. And I think through my novel, I've opened up a new world
for them.
I've opened up a new world, a new set of characters to hopefully people will use to understand.
I'll just read 2-3 paragraphs I really found very interesting. Like the way you have paid a homage to the various stakeholders. So this is page number 317, and I pay homage to the hundreds of soldiers from the Indian Army, the Assam Rifles and other paramilitary forces, and the local police who were martyred during the 2-decade-long insurgency in the Mizo Hills, fighting to protect the territorial integrity of India. I wish to acknowledge and honor the hundreds of Mizo men, women and children who perished when the mortem struck the Mizo Hills in 1959-60 and in the violent insurgency that followed. I acknowledge the struggles and sacrifices of over 70,000 innocent Mizos, citizens of India, who were herded into camps at gunpoint when the villages they lived in were forcibly regrouped in the early years of the insurgency by the Indian government. with no consideration for their liberty or human rights. I pay homage to the civilian victims of the bombing of Agarwal by the Indian Air Force, an unfortunate dark chapter in the history of India that we cannot and must not forget. I recognize and acknowledge the courage of thousands of Mizo youth, men and women, who became guerrillas and put their lives on the line for a cause they believed in. The Mizoram of today is built on their sacrifices. I just felt that this was a very touching aspect that you've written, bringing out the sacrifice of all stakeholders.
Yeah, I think that's important to realize that on both sides, like I said, there's no right and wrong. People are fighting for different reasons, but lives are lost. Thousands and thousands of people have been killed in these insurgencies, right? Maimed, killed, destroyed, families ruined, fighting for what they believe in. Someone fighting to protect the border, someone fighting to say, I want a new border, right? And it's tragic. It's tragic that it comes down to that. And I think the least we can do is acknowledge the sacrifices that people have made for their belief.
So thanks a lot, Nikhil.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the conversation. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you.